Hey guys, it's your humble host, Rekieta if you prefer, so I'm back with another video. I wanted to talk a little bit about the verdict for the Johnny Depp defamation hearing slash trial. I will say that I was actually surprised. I've seen a few reaction videos already, a few comments, commentary articles, what have you. So Johnny Depp did win. He did get paid $10 million dollars plus $5 million in punitive damages, and there's a Virginia law that limits that at $350K. Um, and they did give $2 million to Amber Heard, uh, claiming that she was defamed by Johnny Depp's lawyer. Amber Heard has said that they're going to appeal the verdict, but at this point, it does not matter if she appeals, because in my opinion, it's just going to get tossed out with the amount of coverage. And by the way, if you want thorough coverage, good breakdown, I would recommend a YouTube channel called The Umbrella Guy. Link is in the description below. Another channel I would recommend is Rekieta Law. He did a few panels with a few other lawyer YouTube channels. So I would follow those two YouTube channels and give a thorough look into their coverage, especially that Umbrella Guy. I do believe he had been following that case for 3 to 4 years now, because this mess kind of started in the UK, or is it sits? But the Umbrella Guy has been covering it for a very long time, to the point to where they tried to attack his channel, Amber Heard's team, and they tried to strike his videos. There was actually a group that was actively dedicated. The Umbrella Guy goes over all this stuff to try to see what YouTube videos they could get struck down, which thankfully they were not successful to my knowledge. They even tried to attack his comic book campaign for The Littlest Umbrella, I believe, book 2. So yeah, it's been pretty wild over there. I know for me, I have seen bits and pieces, and I looked into the verdict today. I personally refuse to follow the case all the way through, and the reason why is because, not because it's not an important case, because it very much, I believe, is a victory for not only Johnny Depp, but for male victims slash survivors of domestic violence. This also brings up um, sexual abuse as well. You have both survivors and victims, as there's different severities for male victims. Male victims usually get laughed at and not believed, even the UK, because I do believe that this is kind of like a big reason why Johnny Depp did not win over there. Not only was that court case behind closed doors, but they also have one of their laws for rape is that you have to be penetrated, and only women can be penetrated. So it's really messed up how they only see women as the victims and men as monsters, which is demonstrably false, because both men and women can be monsters to each other. Anyway, so with that being said, I purposefully did not watch the coverage all the way. Not because I didn't care, but because I mentally could not sit through that. If I was a juror spending 6 weeks, I would lose my collective shit. Because not only am I a survivor myself, not a domestic violence, I've already talked about SA and rape and stuff on here, but I also have male members of my family who are victims slash survivors of abuse and domestic violence by the hands of women. So I heard a little bit of the audio tape, which was really effed up. No, I will not be playing or showing anything, just for sensitivity's sake. But I heard and saw enough, especially the audio tape of Amber Heard just pretty much goading Johnny Depp, saying, "Tell the world, Johnny, tell them that you were a victim of domestic violence. They will not believe you." That in itself is the most narcissistic, most abusive, most just monstrous thing that could come out of an abuser's mouth. Like, and you do have women, because we're going to go, you do have women who will purposely taunt the men in their lives saying, well, no one's going to believe you. No one's going to believe that a small female abused a big guy. And let's get real here for like a few seconds. I mean, this is already a real heavy subject, but in a lot of ways, and I'm not down talking into this, but men are sensitive, and I don't want to say the word frail, but they're vulnerable in a lot of ways that women aren't. You know, me and my dad were having a conversation, and I believe this was a few years ago, when I still lived in Illinois, and it has to do, we were talking about the analogy that God gave me marriage is like a sword. And we were talking about why it's hard for men to talk about their struggles, especially when they're married, and why women freak out when men start to become really vulnerable, when men start to struggle. And so, as I had answered, is it's scary, the man that you're relying on, and it's scary to watch them break down. It is the most horrifying experience a wife, a woman, a daughter can watch her father, her husband, her male guardian, her male mentor just like crumble into thousands of pieces, and just it's not fun to watch, and it's very heartbreaking. And at that point where you have to go, like, as a woman, it's like, okay, do I now have to shove things away? And so that's why in itself it's scary. And then you have women who turn around, who go out of their way to break down their men because they want to be in charge or they want to be in control, and that is, I think, in a way worse. And we see it all the time. We see it in society, and men do hurt too. Men do struggle too. That does not say that they are weak, but imagine you have a sword that is constantly going into battle, that is constantly fending off other swords, other weapons, and it's never tended to, it's never properly cared for. If it breaks and it's not properly tended to, it's going to get worse, and it's just going to eventually fall apart altogether. The blade is not going to be able to do much of anything if it's not properly attended to. I believe we've mentioned kind of like on this channel, a little bit about the lack of men's shelters when it comes to domestic violence. Men don't have a place to go. I want to say there's been a brief mention of higher male suicides. If not, I've watched coverage of it and many people talk about it. I'm very much for fathers' rights. I'm still involved in the Save James stuff. I follow Dad Talk. So that's not to say that I do an excellent job when it comes to my own husband. No, Lord knows I have fucked up in so many ways, because either there's stuff I didn't understand or stuff that I just don't know how to deal with, and I'm going to be honest. But at the same time, there's a difference between struggling with being by someone's side when they do have that breakdown versus going out of your way to break down your spouse, the other person you're supposed to care for. So there's a big difference, and I was really, really happy because I didn't watch the verdict reading, but I went and looked up articles. Like I said, I purposely avoided watching a lot of the court coverage because I mentally could not handle it, because it would have made me angry. It would have fucked with my mental state in a way that I really do not like. And as I've already said, I'm an overnight security guard. And I don't need to have my mental state in disarray for my job. Not to say I don't care, because I do. I very much do. But I watched enough to where I got the gist, and I believe I got key points where it was Johnny Depp getting attacked with a bottle, having his finger cut open. I do understand that he was recovering from drug abuse and substance abuse, but he was no longer doing those things. You had Johnny Depp's exes come out and say, no, he never mistreated me. You even had Kate Moss. You had Milani, the makeup brand that Amber Heard claimed to have used to cover up her horror bruises. And then you had freaking Camille, like that woman was on fire. Because she kept calling Amber Heard to the carpet. Like revealed one of the photos was edited, and it's just like, holy crap, this Amber Heard went way out of bounds, and from what I understand, she's still somewhere online claiming that Johnny Depp committed some sort of violence when it was proven spectacularly false. You have the audio, you have Amber Heard admitting to Johnny that she pretty much kept smacking him. She tried to differentiate between fist and a slap, where my hand was open, Johnny. It doesn't fucking matter. You still laid your hands on your at the time husband and told him to grow up and stop being a baby. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're a man or woman. You shouldn't be hitting on anybody. There's self-defense. And then there is just beating on someone for the hell of it, or because you're not getting your way, which does make you an abuser. Man or woman, I do not give a shit. So yeah, no, I watched particular key points. Um, Amber Heard's very disgusting display upon their marriage bed, where Johnny was alerted to it, and he realized it was not a good time to go back to his home. There's text messages, because the Umbrella Guy also covered this at length about how Amber Heard actually was making plans to kill Johnny Depp. She was telling friends to bring over particular knives, and this woman is a freaking monster, and I hope her entire freaking career burns to the ground. I am very happy to hear she's been cut from Aquaman 2 completely. She has been blacklisted by Warner Brothers. I've actually read articles to where they're talking about replacing her character, or the character Merva, completely with another character called Dolphin. I'm not entirely familiar with the Aquaman lore and his ladies, but I do hear that there's either supposed to be a recasting for Merva, or there's going to be a completely female lead replacement of the DC character Dolphin, who I think was an Aquaman lover, from what I'm understanding of that article I read. So there's a lot going on, and I'm really blown away, because I've seen when the jury is completely stupid. The Save James case is a good example of that. Either people not paying attention, or people just begin to tune out because it's so much. I don't know which it is, and in a way, because I myself have never done jury duty, and I never fucking want to, because just freaking no, I cannot be in a room full of stupid people trying to decide someone's fate. I fucking, I will lose my collective shit. I'm not even kidding. I can't even do something like that. So it's just like, I hope to God I never get a notification for jury duty. Ever. Or, if I do, answer the questions where I just get like, no, we don't want you on any case ever. So, just hell no. And I know some people go, well, it's your duty. Great. I don't want to be responsible for other people's fates that way, especially if I get stuck in a room bunch of stupid people, or people who just have their heads up their asses. No, not interested. Shockingly enough, though, this jury for the Johnny Depp trial, defamation trial, they did take into account that it was 3 men and 2 women. I didn't realize the jury was that small, like 5 people. I thought usually juries were a little bit bigger. I don't know, they could have asked for a small one. But yeah, it's a really big deal, and I'm very glad you do have a lot of freaking stupid people, because I understand the Maxwell trial isn't getting that coverage. She's been found guilty, but it's a federal court case, so of course you're not going to have camera coverage. But you have too many people squawking, oh, well, it's two celebrities who are toxic and abusive to each other, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, really? If you actually paid attention, because you have many individuals who actually came out defending Johnny Depp's character, especially, I forget his name, I'm so sorry, but it's the guy everybody likes with the New York accent, the painter. So you had that guy come out, again, you had Johnny Depp's exes, you had friends, you even had, I believe it was police officers or the video footage of the police officers finding no evidence of domestic violence or Amber Heard ever getting struck or hurt by Johnny Depp. That is a thing too. What else is going on? You just have all these stuff. Like I said, I caught bits and pieces, key points, and for me, it was enough. I didn't want to hear Amber Heard talk. From what I understand, she made up these spectacular stories of being dragged through glass, being violated with the glass bottle, but yet she was seen walking around the next day, no bruises. I'm sorry, if you were physically and sexually assaulted by someone, you would not want to be touched. You would not want to be around other people. If anything, you would go full introvert. If not, depending on the person, have a panic attack or anxiety attack. I mean, I'm seeing comments of survivors of domestic violence and victims come out, and even people who have just been abused in general, saying, like, no, for Amber Heard claiming that she was abused in this way and that, her behavior does not make sense. She wouldn't be giggly, she wouldn't be anything other than recluse, quiet, and Amber Heard has been anything but. There's been talk of how she had a PR team to which she fired and then hired another one because people were not believing the bullshit narratives that were being put out by the media. And then you even had the mainstream media start to go, oh, yeah, no, Amber Heard is a monster. Here's some stuff coming out. I know you have particular talking heads. I believe mostly women coming out and saying that this is going to further perpetuate misogyny, which is like, no, I'm sorry, recognizing male victims and male survivors is not misogyny. If anything, not recognizing that there are male survivors and male victims is misandry. Because at that point, a lot of women, and this, I am actually very much glad that the Me Too movement has lost a lot of credibility, and I say that as a survivor of SA/rape, and I never associated myself with that movement because it was hot garbage and it was toxic as fuck. The only thing I really seen come out of the Me Too movement was it being used as a battle axe, and a lot of women with victim complexes that went after men they didn't like. So even during the Vic Mañana stuff, I had compiled a list of cases to where men were wrongfully accused of rape, sexual assault, only to be proven years later that they were innocent. You had one particular young black gentleman who I think spent 7 to 8 years in jail, and I forget his name, and he lost a lot of, I want to say assets, a lot of dreams were crushed. He was, prior to the allegation, offered a full scholarship to further his career in football, but that got taken away from him. When it does come to male survivors and victims, I've spoken about the guy who was raped and forced to have sex with his crazy ex when she was holding him hostage with a machete. So, I mean, I could go on, and this does, because Eric Carroll, Dad Talk, did talk about this too. And, of course, again, for the dum-dums who don't want to recognize how important this is, you had a lot of people, I want to say a lot of men too, it's like, oh, this is no big deal, and they're both toxic, and blah, 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 blah. And because they were also getting on to a Kenneth Rosa of the father rights movement, going like, well, why are you talking about this? What does this have to do with father's rights? Hey, stupid. This has to do with father's rights because this also has to do with, which stems from how men are treated in court overall when they're accused of heinous acts without very little, if any, actual evidence that can be backed up and proven to be legitimate. So yes, this very much has to do with fathers' rights. This has to do with men's rights. This has to do overall with how men are looked at in the courts and overall society when they are turned around and beaten upon. Like, it's very important. Women are not the only ones that need care in their vulnerabilities. Men very much do. Like, if you guys have actually legit seen a man being broken down by society, I'm not talking about him being immature. I'm talking about where literally no matter what he does, it never seems to be the right thing to anybody. He's accused of this and that. It could be because of his natural nature as a guy. It could be a myriad of things. So, I mean, we see this with the family courts too, to where there's parent alienation, which is a type of child abuse, if not ex-spousal abuse. I'm sorry. You are using a child against the father of your children and brainwashing the children against the father. Like, I could go on because this is so impactful, because when we tear down the guardians, when we tear down, and I'm sorry, men are stronger than women. I mean, I know people hate to hear that, but when we start to tear down one of the strong pillars of society, the rest of it will crumble. And we have done just that, to where we have men who are now afraid to stand up. We have men who are scared to death of getting into relationships. We have men who just had no freaking clue how to fight back because the system is so rigged against them. It just, and it's only going to get worse because the entire world is going to hell, but let's fight back while we can, because it's important. When you have, again, going back to my analogy, marriage is like a sword. When you have that blade still intact, you have to care for the blade as much as you care for the hilt. They are strong in different ways, and they need care in different ways, but both of them still need to be cared for. You cannot neglect one and focus on the other. You, it's, the entire sword is going to be unusable at that point. The entire thing is going to fall apart if you just focus on one part of it and don't tend to the other part. And it's so important. And a lot of what has happened in society today, I mean, even looking back at my own family history, it's beyond messed up, and I'm glad to see that we had a celebrity. Yes, celebrities can bring their voice, and we do have a lot of them in Hollywood that just need to shut the hell up and just get back in touch with reality, please. But this was very much a down-to-earth case. This was very much well, I'm touching grass, and the grass beneath me has pretty much burned up and crisp, and I'm here to tell my story and clear my name. And I'm very glad Johnny Depp was able to do that, and it was such a public display, because when you have the public watching a court case and there is transparency, certain people are going to be afraid of fucking around, because then you find out when you fuck around. I don't believe that there should be sealed court cases for the most part. I do believe our courtrooms should be opened, and a lot of stuff should be kept an eye on. And that goes for federal court too, because there's a lot of stuff that's hidden. We just had what was it? Hillary Clinton's campaign, one of her campaign advisors, be cleared of lying to the FBI about Trump and his campaign. So these higher cases also need the same amount of transparency, but we don't get that. This is just a major step, and I've already gotten to like near 25 minutes, but I cannot express enough the impact this is going to have, and hopefully the change it's going to bring, because this is going to open a lot of eyes. This could impact a lot of custody battles, to where people start going, oh crap, this is an actual thing. How about we relook at some of this stuff? Like, this is going to have a major ripple, and I hope tidal wave. I hope it's a tidal wave, not just a ripple effect. Because I hope it somehow impacts the custody cases I've been following for a change for the good. and just other stuff in general. And I really hope we do begin to see a change. And it's high time the narcissistic women of our society need to be put in their place. It's freaking high. We have too many women, and I know there is toxic men. I'm not saying that there isn't, but we have too many narcissistic women in high places where they have too much of an influence. They're not brought down a few pegs. And we have one that was. We very much have one that not only brought on the coattails of her husband's fame and got into a major movie role, but then she turned around and even during that time mistreated him, abused him, mocked him, and she actually caused another marriage to dissolve, Jason Momoa and his marriage, which I hope to God he's able to reconcile that somehow. I don't know the details of how Amber Heard had a negative impact on the marriage or was part of the cause of that divorce, but I do hope he's able to reconcile his marriage. Because yeah, that really freaking sucks. But anyway, that is my spiel. I can go on forever if I want to and go into a myriad of things. But if you are a male victim slash survivor, you don't have to stuff it down. You don't have to, you do get to tell your story. And as hard as it is, because I've talked about this on my channel too, the biggest thing that helps a survivor slash victim heal is when they're able to find their voice, is when they're able to speak about their story with clarity, and they're able to have that healing process where they can begin to tell their story, because it helps them process further what happened and how their abuse and trauma does not make them, and it's not going to be the very thing that defines them in the very end. So, and I'm still learning to find my voice on certain things, but I'm thankful that I have learned to vocalize certain things. And yet, you do have men, like, being beat upon is embarrassing. It's embarrassing for anyone, but I will say it affects men in a special way, and this is not to take away from the survivors and victims, women, the women who had to suffer that way, unfortunately, but with men is because they're seen as the strong one, they're seen as the pillars. So when that pillar, as I said, or that sword starts to crack, starts to crumble, starts to just freaking break, it puts men overall in a very, very scary spot for them. And you do have other men who jump on and tear them apart. You have women who jump on that and tear it apart, and it's freaking disgusting. And let me also point this out because I feel like this does need clarification. There's a difference between a man struggling to put himself back together versus a man who doesn't want to deal with his insecurities and develops a narcissistic behavior to where he starts to show off bravado and a false image. So there is a big difference between the two. I am talking about the men who just are broken down and they don't have a support system or they don't have a way to heal. Johnny Depp, for a while, from what I understand, did not have a way to heal. He had to continue to mess around to the Pirates of the Caribbean. He had to deal with just hot takes and tabloids, just calling him an abuser, a monster. And Amber Heard, because of our society, was allowed to run around free for a while because of the UK hearing finding him guilty, but they were also behind closed doors, and the way that they view men is freaking atrocious. They do not see men as victims at all, which needs to change. So, in order for us to acknowledge and actually help tend to male victims slash survivors, the mindset of society needs to change. And that's not to say to look at men as the weaker sex or they can't man up. But again, in order to have, going back to my analogy, in order to have an effective weapon, an effective sword, a strong pillar, when the sword or the pillar begins to break down, begins to crumble, you have to take the time to address the cracks. You have to take the time to address the crumbling. And we do not do that enough. Like I said, I'm not the best person at it when it comes to my own spouse, and I am going to admit that freely because it is a struggle. But it is a struggle that needs to be overcome, and this is very important for society if we want to get back, because this also affects the nuclear family, this affects homes. We have too many broken homes, and we need, in order to heal society, we need to focus on the way that we treat men. We need to focus on how we see them, and this does go for women too. Women do not always need to be large and in charge. It just I'm so sick of that damn word. Freaking patriarchy, because that's all I've heard from feminists. Oh, this is gonna enforce the patriarchy, blah blah. Like, I'm so sick of that shit. That is such a, or internalized misogyny. I've heard that word too. That is such a brain dead freaking excuse to not address the deep problem with society and the way that we treat our men and the way that we look at our men, because we do have feminists who try to go after natural masculinity um in its raw form. And yes, there is ways that men can be toxic, but there is toxic femininity as well, misandry, which is running rampant. So don't even get me started on that shit, because yeah. Anyway, but we need to do better, and I really hope that this case has opened up a lot of eyes and does begin to have the tidal wave impact as many as us hope when it comes to just how men are seen in the courtroom, and especially in family court. Because once we establish or reestablish the man figure in society, we can start to reestablish the proper father figure in the home and start to heal our homes. Because a lot of, and I'm going to bring it up, you have the case with the Uvalde shooting, the shooter, fatherless home. A lot of youth, especially young men that wind up in jail, and a lot of women who end up in horrid spots, fatherless homes, a lot of father issues. We need to reestablish this, and this is very much important, and I hope what I'm saying is coming through. So, without further ado, I'm going to end it here, because as I said, I can go on for quite a while, because there's so much that needs to be addressed, and I'm so happy. Yes, it's a celebrity, big deal. Celebrity are still people. No, not many celebrities want to acknowledge that they're still people, but there's very few, like Johnny Depp and a few others, who acknowledge that they're still people and still interact as normal people. Um, anyway, cheers all around, and yes, if you are a male victim slash survivor, I do encourage you to start to tell your story if you know how to. One of the things that my dad passed on, because I believe that I said this in a previous video, is be careful who you tell your story to, but I'm going to build upon that, is be careful who you tell your story to until you know how to tell your story with clarity and understanding and you have processed it. It is a journey, and it's not a difficult, or excuse me, it is a difficult one. With that being said, I will end it here and keep an eye on the news. See you guys.